Ciao, I'm Tim Block, and this is my wife, Joan Block. And with Jan and Paul Whitty, who we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, we're co-founders of the Hepatitis B Foundation.
So the Hepatitis B Foundation was started with a personal story. It's actually sort of a love story. More than 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with hepatitis B. I was a nurse at the time. And in the late 1980s, hepatitis B was certainly in the dark ages. It was considered as terrible and as infectious as HIV. And I actually was suspended from my job. My child was kicked out of daycare. It was a very traumatic time. And there was really very little information. And there was certainly no nonprofit organization for us to turn to for real information and real support. As a result, my husband, who's a virologist, decided we needed to do something. And he turned to our friends Paul and Jan Whitty to start the Hepatitis B Foundation, because as you can see on the screen, we initially met with major pharmaceutical executives who said there's no market for an HBV drug, public health officials who said there's a vaccine, there's no need for a cure. And we met with some premier liver NGOs who said they don't include infectious liver diseases. So we were really left out in the cold. And that's why we started the Hepatitis B Foundation.
Here, Jan and Paul Whitty are here. They're our co-founders. And this is taken way back when we started nearly 30 years ago. Because of the reasons that Joan just mentioned, we were motivated to form a nonprofit organization with the ambitious goal of finding a cure for people affected by hepatitis B and liver cancer, the diseases that hepatitis B causes. And we wanted to do this through research, actually cure research, but also we realized the importance of patient advocacy and education. And what we'll talk about in a moment, Joan will talk about mostly, is how the Hepatitis B Foundation has established a number of tools that we use mostly in the United States, but we think they're applicable all over the world in reaching out to individuals with hepatitis B and linking them to care. This is a photograph of me, I guess close to 30 years ago, sitting with Dr. Baruch Blumberg, who won the Nobel Prize for discovery of the hepatitis B virus with his colleagues. And I went to work with him as a sabbatical fellow at the University of Oxford in the early 90s. Shortly after we started the foundation, with the hope that we would be able to make an impact on a cure for hepatitis B. I was a professor at the time at Jefferson Medical School, and since then, of course, we'll talk about the establishment of our research institute, which now is in his name.
So over the past 30 years, we have literally grown from my taking phone calls from patients and families looking for information to a comprehensive website that receives 4 million visits a year from 100 plus countries. We have social media, we have tens of thousands of followers. We receive patient consults through the phone and email helplines. And we have a YouTube channel where we post all of our patient videos of people sharing their stories. In addition to our patient outreach, we have a very robust public health program led by Dr. Sherry Cohen. And our very specific goal is to save lives by increasing awareness, testing, and linkage to care, which can include both vaccination and treatment. So in order to achieve this very ambitious goal, we have many activities. And some of the key things that we have learned over the past 30 years is we need to work together. We need to create coalitions of elected officials, federal public health agencies, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, patient advocacy groups. By working together, we can achieve so much. And one of the things we've done in the United States is we've created Hep B United, which is a national coalition with almost 50 members. And we reach more than 3 million high-risk community members, particularly in the Asian and Pacific Islander communities. We have partnered with the CDC on a national campaign to reach these communities. You can see there's a poster here in Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese, and the CDC has video PSAs, posters, all sorts of materials which we help to disseminate in those communities through our Hep B United Coalition. We also support international campaigns, such as what Dr. Dwell has started in Vietnam through the Vietnam Viral Hepatitis Alliance, and we appreciate his invitation to speak today. We, of course, do many more things, but the key takeaway in our public health is working together is how we achieve our goals.
As we mentioned, the initial goal and ambition of the Hepatitis B Foundation was really to try to find a cure for those affected by hepatitis B, for the disease that affects them. And we established a research institute in suburban Philadelphia, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which was initially called the Institute for Hepatitis and Virus Research. We renamed it in honor of Dr. Bruce Blumberg, who remained a part of the foundation until his passing in 2013. And right now, there are about 70 scientists and trainees who work at the Bruce S. Blumberg Institute on our own campus, which you'll see an image of in a moment. And we work its discovery research, and the area on this graphic, you're seeing the various areas that were identified in what were called the Roadmap to a Cure, which we worked on creating with other coalition partners and the US National Institutes of Health. And these are the various areas, pretty ambitious areas, but these are the areas that we think need to be addressed to achieve a cure for hepatitis B and liver cancer. Now, that's obviously that's a very broad area. What I want you to know from the work we've done at the Hepatitis B Foundation Labs, the Blumberg Institute, is that work from our institute, one way or another, has been at the cornerstone of several drugs that are now in people for testing. Maybe perhaps not our drugs, but the capsid inhibitors in particular. Most of those have a basis in one way or the other in work that was done at the Blumberg Institute. And also there are some other very experimental strategies out there. So the Blumberg Institute is a very, very important part, I believe, of the solution, the problem of curing the disease caused by hepatitis B. At the Blumberg Institute, we also have a very, very important commitment to training and education. And what you're seeing here in the graphic is the image of a high school student actually working with our Vice President for Research, Dr. Jutao Guo. And we have at this point, well, actually before the pandemic, we had 40 high school students on site every day taking their classes there. We have the summer college program, which has started again. It was obviously suspended a little during the pandemic. We have junior research apprentices, master's programs, PhD programs through Drexel and the University of Pennsylvania on our site, and international exchange programs, and a very, very robust postdoctoral training program. Since 2005, when Professor Stefan Urban and I co-chaired the International Hepatitis B meetings, the Hepatitis B Foundation has now assumed responsibility for coordinating this meeting. It's grown from a meeting of about 110, 120 people to about 500 or 600 scientists. It is the definitive hepatitis B meeting, research meeting in the world, and it's held all over the world. We had to skip last year because of the pandemic, but this year, we hope at the end of September, it will be live in Toronto. It'll be a hybrid program. The most important research around the world comes together, and there's a great spirit of collaboration. I hope someday that it's in Vietnam.
So this year, 2021, we are celebrating our 30th anniversary. And as you can see, we have certainly grown from our community grassroots effort into a national organization with almost 70 research scientists, 30 public health and outreach professionals. And together, the Hepatitis B Foundation and its Bruce S. Blumberg Institute are making a real impact in advancing the search for a cure and certainly improving the lives of those affected. In the upper right corner, right here, you can see a schematic of our campus. We currently have 3 buildings, and we're in the process of building our 4th building to accommodate the growing Bruce S. Blumberg Research Institute. And one of the final things I'd like to say is that, you know, the Hepatitis B Foundation was started to help my family, our family, to help one family. Today, we're here to help the millions of families, and patient stories, telling personal stories is really one of the keys to motivating community members, elected officials, donors to contribute to the cause to eliminate to eliminate hepatitis B and truly to make hepatitis B history. Please visit us at the hepb.org and blumberginstitute.org website, and feel free to follow us on social media. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ciao.